Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our global audience. I hope you and your family are doing well and staying safe in these trying times. My name is Faraz, and I lead the GCO transformation practice at Zinnov. Thanks for joining in for this intriguing panel, which is themed around the GBS imperative, refocusing business strategy for value creation. Over the past decade, we have increasingly witnessed that the conversation around GCO maturity has gained serious momentum. Global organizations today view GCOEs across the globe as strategic hubs that are capable of owning and delivering end to end charters, and more importantly, play a role of a change agent for the organization. This is no different actually when it comes to the global business services centers. MNCs today are heavily engaging the capabilities of these GBS centers to drive accelerated transformation, digitization of both processes and platforms in order to truly win the growth wars. Today, I'm honored to be joined by an esteemed panel who are all stalwarts of the GBS industry in their own right. I assure you that with them, there will be some deep learnings for you and I over the next 40 odd minutes. Sumit, Lalita, Sunil, Lene, I welcome you to the panel discussion. Before we start, I would like you all to give a brief introduction about yourself, talk a little about your organization and the role that you play in your company. We can perhaps go alphabetically, starting with Lalita.
Hey everyone, I'm Lalita Indrikanti. I'm the GBS head for Inca Group globally. Inca Group is the strategic partner in the IKEA franchise system, and we stand for more than 90% of total IKEA sales globally. We have three different business areas within Inca, which is basically the IKEA retail, Inca centers, that is the shopping center business, and Inca investments. Inside Inca, the GBS organization is called Global Business Operations, supporting Inca Group as the capability arm, supporting group functions like finance, procurement, people and culture, and other group functions. In my role, I'm responsible for all the hubs, global hubs, which is basically we have hubs in Europe, Asia, US, and India is the newest kid in the block, and we support all group functions. And in India, we also have the digital operations from India. That's me in a short bit.
Thanks, Lalita, and welcome to the panel. Line?
Yeah, thank you. I'm Lene Hylling Axelsson, and I'm working for the global pharmaceutical company called Novo Nordisk. So we are the world leaders within diabetes, and our main, most well-known product is insulin. In India, we have both a commercial operations and then we are having our shared services, which is now a 10-year-old operation with 2,500 people. And that's the unit I'm leading. And we are basically a mini copy of Novo Nordisk because we have all units represented in our shared services and we're growing every day. So I think that's what I'm going to say about us.
Thanks, Line. Lovely to have you. Sumit?
Hi, everybody. I'm Sumit Mitra. I'm the CEO of Tesco Global Business Services. We are across 4 countries supporting Tesco Retail and its subsidiaries like Tesco Bank and Tesco Mobile. I also have a second role where I sit on the board of our joint venture with the Tata Group, which is the Trent Hypermarket, which is actually retailing in India. And I also sit on the board of Booker, which is our wholesale division from a Tesco perspective. So we have around 5,000 colleagues supporting our 4 markets, supporting all sorts of processes from finance to architecture to people processes to contract and commercial management. And I'm sure I'll talk about that later. But lovely to be here today.
Thanks, Sumit. Sunil?
Hello, everybody. Greetings to all of you. So I'm Sunil Shah. I'm the CEO of Societe Generale Global Solutions Center, with centers here in India and also a center in Romania, in Bucharest, and I supervise those centers. In India, we are present in Bangalore and Chennai, approximately 9,000 colleagues in India. Societe Generale is a global universal bank with presence, headquartered in Europe, but present across all the major financial geographies of the world. We have activities ranging from classical IT, application development, finance operations, HR operations, and whatnot. All a variety of different group activities being done here. Pleased to be here today with you all.
Thank you, Sunil, and thank you all the panelists for making the time for this session. And my first question for all the panelists is going to be slightly broad, right? We really are intrigued by the journey your respective organizations have taken, in the form of the activities that you're driving and just the evolution of the centers, right? So my first question is about the journey. If you could talk about your organizational journey from how it really became, how it started to where it is now, how it really started off perhaps as a shared services center to now really becoming a business delivery center, right? We could start with Sumit.
Thanks. So let me start a little bit about Tesco. Tesco is the fourth largest retailer in the world, largest food retailer in Europe. We are across 4 countries. Tesco has been quite pioneer, actually, in terms of setting up shared services. They built a center here in Bangalore in 2004. The whole purpose of that was basically move some processes, kind of labor arbitrage. And the main focus, obviously, was labor arbitrage. And then there was a small technology center as well. But over the years, I've been working with Tesco for the last 4 years, and the journey we've taken over the last 4 years is about how do we move it from a labor arbitrage center to a global GBS model, which creates value. So as we stand, we manage between 70 to 100% of all Tesco's retail processes and around 50% of the subsidiary processes. We are no longer focused on SLAs, KPIs, and which are process-led. We are more focused on creating value from a revenue, margin, cash generation perspective. We provide insights through deep analytics for our customers and our colleagues and suppliers. And also, we take a center stage in terms of transforming our business through digital transformation end-to-end from a Tesco perspective. I almost call it's the edge transforming the core of the business. And I'm particularly proud over the last 2 years, we've been top 20 most admired GBS in the world through the SSO assessment, Shared Service and Outsourcing Network assessment. And it's been a long journey, but we haven't reached the destination yet. It's a journey. Journey continues in terms of creating more value for the group.
Thanks for that, Sumit. I'll move to Lalita. Lalita, again, similar space, retail, but in our conversation earlier as well, we were talking about how the organization was set up with a particular kind of a say objective. But right now, your charters is really to take it to the next level, right? To drive value from the center. If you can talk through a little bit about that journey.
Absolutely, Firas. So basically, for us in Inca, the journey is at about 8+ years old. Started as the shared services center doing transactional kind of things. In the last 1.5 years, we've really transformed into moving into capability centers and centers of expertise for the organization. Essentially, as the retail is transforming, as we are gearing up with the new business reality of moving towards more of an omni-channel retail, creating a seamless experience across all channels for the customer. This, as part of the organization, is going through tremendous amount of internal transformation. To deliver an excellent omni-channel experience for more of the many people, we really need to be excellent in our operations. And as global business operations, this is core of what we do. We partner with group functions to make IK fit for future as what we call as people-powered and data-driven organization. Our aim is to help enable and to be partner with all the internal transformations. Besides that, as I mentioned, we also went through our own transformational journey of moving from a shared services center into more of a capability center that involves strategy, organizational, structural changes, the ways we work, the way we operate, how do we work with our internal partners. So it's a multifaceted transformation that we went through ourselves so that we can help the organizational transformation more effectively.
Brilliant, brilliant. Sunil, I'll come to you next. You operate in the BFSI space, right? And what I'd like you to touch upon is, as part of the journey, what in essence is value for your organization, and how are you really delivering that for the parent organization?
Sure, for us. So, yes, as you rightly said, Societe Generale is a BFSI organization. And as you know, some of the unique drivers for a bank of our size are absolutely, the scale, the volume of things that we deal with, and a very constant focus and pressure of regulation, new, sort of compliance rules, and all of those things that we have to adhere to, as well as a very strong competitive marketplace. So, a very, very tight focus on cost as well. So our value creation journey through our GBS here in India and Romania has been to very strongly align to the group objectives and try to deliver value that makes sense to the overall perspective of the group. So we have been present here in India for the last 20 years, but I would say for the last 7-8 years, a consistent shift in the mindset and the way we think about the value that a shared service center organization can deliver beyond process delivery SLAs, but into much more value added streams. So we look at it from a threefold perspective. First one is about process excellence. How do we transform the processes that we have using some of the latest technologies, or maybe a complete design thinking led process redesign, revisiting the roles, having more and more global roles in the center here. And leading to huge efficiencies, and of course a better customer experience for the end stakeholders. So that's the first anchor that we look at from a value perspective. The second is digital transformation. The banks are tremendously transforming using digital, and nowadays it's more of a technology bank rather than a pure classical bank per se. So how do we bring the power of digital to the group at an accelerated way, right? Cloud transformation, creating capability clusters on application modernization, bringing in platforms, new digital tools, etc. We are building capabilities and COEs or capability clusters to deliver these at an accelerated pace to the group. And finally, looking at innovation, right? How do we bring the innovation ecosystem together? The startups, the mindset of the people here who want change and who are willing to invest in new things. Developing more internal entrepreneurs, internal startups. So we look at it from those perspective of adding more value to the group for us.
Very well said, Sunil. Thank you for that perspective. Line, in terms of no notice journey, right? Perhaps you're comparatively late starters, but it's not really a bad thing. You have so many other organizations to learn from and really start off on the right side of the maturity curve, like we call it. What is your perspective about the entire journey?
Yeah, I mean, pharma industry has been a fat industry, you could say, until now, being a little bit lean back because we didn't have the same push for profit as you see, for instance, in the banking we're just hearing, or the detail or retail industry. But now, especially during COVID, we see a huge, fast push for digitalization and innovation in the pharma industry as well. So from having been a shared service where we've been growing steadily and where we've been lifting and shifting a lot and focusing a lot on labor arbitrage, we are also now looking towards the others, seeing how can we become innovative, how can we digitalize more. And in our case, it's very much about collaborating across our shared services, being faster in establishing standards, being faster in establishing how can we optimize processes so that we are actually owners of the processes, and we know how we optimize and digitalize and innovate very fast. So it means suddenly you need to collaborate across the value chain. You need to see that within the shared services, we actually collaborate within the various functions. So that's a big culture shift. and it's a culture shift also towards our headquarters. And I must admit that takes time to change the culture of headquarters. In the past knew exactly what they wanted to lift and shift. They knew how they wanted it done, but now they are asking us to have an opinion. They are asking us to know how to say no. So we are learning fast, but also doing a lot of mistakes, and we are struggling still with this culture transformation, to be honest.
Thanks for bringing that up, Alina, because my next question was exactly that, around mind shift change and the culture, really, right? Lalita, maybe I'll go to you first here, right? In terms of what are the nuances around culture and mind shift change that you really see when you're moving from say GSS to a GBS?
I think in any transformation, I think the hardest thing is to change the mindset. Both mindset of the organization as well as the people, right? It's easier to create an organization from the scratch, do it right from the beginning, get it right the first time, than changing something that is the existing. I think some more often than not, when you move from a shared services center into a capability or the GBS kind of a setup, what happens is, maybe it is okay from a branding perspective to brand it better, sell internally in the organization. The whole narrative has to shift from being it a push, from functions having to pull your services. So that is probably the easier shift than the existing teams, existing leadership teams, and getting them to think differently, because they're so used to doing things a certain way for so many years. The hardest part is because they're still doing the same jobs, and we're expecting different things from them. We're expecting them to take accountability. We're expecting them to behave like partners to business. So it's a huge internal transformation, I would say, rather than just the branding inside the organization. Probably in many ways that is the easier thing to achieve than the mind shift of your own teams. So that is the biggest thing what I have realized in the last 1.5 years journey.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sumit, in terms of any specific examples of how you've gone about really bringing about this mindset shift?
Yeah, I think it's both top down and bottom up, actually. So for me, the first important piece of building a world-class GBS model is getting a seat on the table. Because if you, as a leader, don't have a seat on the table, it's very hard to drive any change, and things almost get done to you rather than you are being the change enabler. So at a Tesco level, and I feel that not just Tesco, but specifically for all GBS, if the GBS leader who's running a very global team is part of the exec and reporting into the exec, working very closely with the group CEO who has to be the sponsor, I think that makes a huge difference in terms of the mind shift across the exec committee as well as the senior leaders of the business. And then from a bottom up culture, I believe that it's important. Sometimes when you're running centers which are thousands of miles away from the mothership, it's important to have and build the right culture within the organization, which connects to the purpose, the value of the organization. And sometimes it's very easy for people sitting in India to think my customers is my stakeholders. I'm very clear that my customer is the customers who spend their hard-earned wooden dollar in our stores and not our stakeholders. We're not here to please our stakeholders. We're here to ensure we connect to the purpose of serving our shoppers a little better every day. So that little better comes from the continuous improvement culture that you build within the organization. And thirdly, to bring all this together, I would say, I give the analogy of bullet train. When we spend millions of dollars on driving a new age technology, whether it's a new ERP system or new digitalization process, if that's the bullet train which will take you on the journey, if you can't build the tracks, the bullet train is useless. And the two tracks of those bullet train is the culture of the organization, which is, are you ready to adopt and adapt to change? Are you agile as a business? And the second step is your process. Do you have clear accountability and ownership and visibility of the end-to-end process? If you have the culture and process in place, then the bullet train of technology runs pretty smoothly. And that's kind of our experience from Tesco, to be honest.
That's the Tesco bullet train formula. All right, Sunil or Lene, any experiences from your end on the entire mind shifts change? And it's right. I mean, when I was reflecting, when someone was talking about, it's about bottom up as well as top down, right? One of the things that we've often seen is when you recruit talent, they come in from a lot of times services organization, and they have very SLAs kind of mindset. And we need to change that, right? In terms of, you just cannot think like a services organization when you're really looking at that transformation. Any experiences around that, Sunil?
Yes. So that was a great analogy, the Tesco bullet train. Excellent. I will use that. I will just modify it a little bit, but I will definitely use that. No, so the just the way you said, top down, bottom up. I think it's to me, it's both shores. It has to be on the India side and it has to be on the headquarters side as well. I think what we need to do is also reset expectations with our global, sponsors of the shared service center, of the GBS, and to say, you need to expect more from the center here. You need to challenge us more, and you need to stop using us only for process sort of activities. So that's the first mindset change that has to happen. And on the India side, I think a couple of things I would say, to starting from the top, resetting the bar, raising the bar, setting objectives, performance criteria that reward behavior other than pure growth type of behavior. We need to remove the addiction to number growth that some of the classical management structures have in the past rewarded. So we need to adjust that and really change that and set performance objectives that reward this new behavior. I'll just add that as an additional comment to what has already been said.
That's a brilliant point. In terms of, sometimes success is looked at as the number of people you have in your India center, or perhaps the transactions, etc. you're processing. But yeah, it's about also how smartly you're driving that, right? Right. I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk about specifically what you're driving in some of these in your centers very uniquely. Lena, I'll start with you. Firstly, your rationale behind setting up the center in India, right? The India advantage of sorts. What is so unique about the ecosystem, and what is it? Because we're seeing a trend, right, where increasing number of organizations are coming to India, right? We also, of course, know about the entire talent advantage that we have, and cost, of course, is at the back burner, and it's something that is already a given. But anything that is unique that made you take that decision and drive this transformation?
Yeah, I mean, originally, as everybody else, it was the labor arbitrage, and I mean, I'm reporting to our CFO, and he still says, well, 70 to 80% of the whole value contribution is still labor arbitrage. Let's be honest, and of course, within that, we can continue to do better and better by being more efficient. But having said that, he's also very much aware of that there's great talent here, and it's talent both within finance IT, but also within what we need in the pharma industry. So within medical space, regulatory space, etc. So talent is for sure here, and a lot is happening. But then also the fact that Bangalore is sort of the Silicon Valley of India, and is amongst top 3 when it comes to startups in the world. So when I heard that Sunil had something collaboration innovation hub in Société Générale, I heard that 1.5 years ago. I said, I want the same. So I went back home and I said, I want the same here in my GBS. And the first answer from headquarters was, no, you shouldn't innovate. Don't do that. And I decided to do it anyway, and I did it on my local processes. And it's been a hard start, and I've done a lot trying to copy others as well, and especially Société. And then now we are running, we've been running several waves with a partner with startups, and suddenly headquarters realized, gosh, something's going on, and we've been collaborating with our innovation hub we have in our innovation experts we have in headquarters within global IT. And they have now realized you're onto something interesting here. So you continue going, we'll support you. and we might move things to you, or there might be things where you feel this is too big, you move it to us. So suddenly we see collaboration going within innovation. So I'm very enthusiastic about that, and I think it's back to that India has something special to offer.
So it's almost taking those big, bold calls, being intrapreneurial in your mindset again, right?
Yeah.
And being,
Yeah.
say, driving that agenda. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that was not how we were set up, originally. We were set up to just do what headquarters told us to do. But now we are slowly changing that. But it's a journey.
Got it. Got it. It's about creating the small success stories and then almost building
Yeah.
that case for yourself.
Yeah.
Sumit, you're a global leader, right? You have multiple centers across the globe that report back into you, right? And from that point of view, from a location standpoint, right? Do you see there are certain pieces of work that can be driven better out of certain locations, and as a result, India, having an advantage for certain type of work? Your thoughts?
Great question. I think we have a very clear strategy in terms of what goes in where, and why do we have those 4 centers that we have. We are very clear that anything to do with customer voice contact has to be in the country, because customer likes talking to local accent and local processes, so which is fine. Number 2, any processes that require language capability. We are in Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, and what doesn't happen, you're not going to get a lot of these local languages in India. So it's very important to have a clear distinction. So I see India in 5 areas. 1, for me, it's a center of scale. So anything that we want to experiment, we want to build and scale, it's in India. By default, majority of the work is done in India. And we know we can replicate and scale anywhere else. Number 2, we see it as center of excellence. So anything to do with digital transformation, whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it's RPA capability, whether it's process automation. So all that is done through India, because we have the ecosystem around us through startups, through companies. So we work with them and create a very strong ecosystem. We try and do things in-house, project managed by in-house, but we augment our resourcing through working with partners. The third I see is a center of innovation. So we moved from service. Our center in India used to be called Hindustan Service Center. So from there, we moved into complete business intelligence. So where a lot of the innovation, so 80-90% of our technology is engineering. So how we've shifted that, and that becomes your center of innovation, whether it's working for our automation of distribution centers, cloud-based sales, or drone-based delivery systems. These are all trialed and piloted and worked through in India in collaboration with our other hubs. And the fourth one is center of insight, where my deep science data analytics is done from India, which really drives the right insight and behavior. I call it decision cockpits, which drives the right decisions and behaviors across our business. We actually, in a Tesco store, doesn't matter, it's 50,000, 60,000 square feet. We actually define what goes in which shelf based on our data science. So a store manager just implements it. So that comes in as a center of insight. And the fifth one, we call it, is the center of talent. So we acquire talent and then we push talent across different countries. I'll give you an example. A gentleman 6 years ago who used to do our AP processing is now the CFO of Ireland. Somebody who was managing our finance in Bangalore is now chief finance controller for UK. So we have managed to export talent from India. Our head of procurement is now leading categories, sitting in the UK, managing categories. So we have managed to export talent to different parts of the business and become a center of talent and breeding talent and growing talent to create value for the group.
Can you please repeat that for me? That looks like the formula to go for. You said scale, you said technology, you said talent, you said deep data science. And what was the fifth?
So I termed it slightly different. I said center of scale, center of excellence, center of innovation, center of insight, and center of talent.
Brilliant. That's the GBS formula for me. Thank you. Right. Lalita, you operate also in a...
Copyright though, however.
Right. We'll quote you. We'll quote you on that. Lalita, you also operate in a similar space. Global centers report into you. Any specific, formula behind which you decide what work to be done where? Again, similar to Sumit.
I was just thinking when Sumit is talking, if I have to answer that question, this is exactly what I'm going to do as well, right? Because I think the principles pretty much remains the same in terms of more business-centric work, more where customer intimacy is required, language capabilities are required, happens in our regional centers, and the things that happen in the global center. India is still at a ramp-up phase. But if I have to really talk about one of the things which I can say is, as I had this advantage of setting up this global organization or transform into this global organization, one of the biggest dilemmas for me was, how do I decide what management roles should sit where? Right? Because the management team who works with me are going to be really looking after all the centers across the globe. So where do we place the management teams? But I think from a couple of fundamental principles where we've used also, where we work heavily with partner ecosystem, where we know that there is certain work that will be done by our strategic partners, and the roles that liaison with that, the roles that oversee that, the roles that integrated back into the organization through the GB organization, we've based those management roles in India. And the roles where, like, for example, my people and culture operations manager sits out of my Europe center, wherein the finance and procurement operations managers sit out of the India center. So it also not just about our distribution of work, but how do we work with the ecosystem? How do we work with our partners? Those are also the decision parameters in deciding how the work is going to be done for me, for us.
Got it, Lalita. That's very interesting. Sunil, I'll come to you, and I want to talk to you about innovation, right? And we are all, really wanting to have innovation at the front and center of things when you're running centers. One of the things that we know that you do very well is collaborate with the external ecosystem. If you could talk about some of the examples there, it'd be great to hear.
No, absolutely. Happy to do that. So we have a program that we created a few years ago called Catalyst. So that program is about bringing the external startup ecosystem into the setup that we have here. So we work with our business stakeholders, identify business challenges, sort of problem statements, if you may, that we publish to the entire startup world. And we allow the different startups that are there, through different aggregators with, NASCOM 1000 startups, Numa, etc., to come back to us with proposals of how those different startups can solve the business challenge, the problem statement that we have. We go through a very quick filtration process, narrow it down, and then start discussing with those startups of how it could work. Now, what is unique to this program is we have also defined a 10-week intensive co-development process where the startup works with us, with our teams, with our business analysts, to really customize their solution using our data, cleaned up data. We create a zone for them where they can work with, without sort of seeing sensitive data, but still having access to real data that may, that is very important for them to scale their solution. Analyst, sort of articulate the use case from our point of view, and we are able to mix and match the solution that we have. And then after 8 weeks, there is a demo, and if that solution makes sense for us, we actually go on to the next stage where we enter into a commercial contract with them and try to bring that solution into production. So having these different waves of these type of startup ecosystem has really helped us. We have been successful in many of them with our partners, as earlier said, really appreciating some of these new ways of coming up with solutions which are not very classical, some rapid solutions, leveraging the power of ML, AI, and really building platforms on which we can collaborate. So that has been one program, on innovation that has been extremely helpful for us. The second one I will also very quickly mention is the partnership with academia. So we have partnership with IIT Madras, with IISc in Bangalore, to leverage their capability centers that they have on decision sciences, data sciences, ML, AI, and in many cases we are able to go to them with a research request, and they are able to deploy their students, their professors, to come back to us with a clear research note, a POC, etc. So that collaboration also has been helping and working very well for us so far.
Great, great. Thanks for sharing that, Sunil. For how long have you been running the startup collaboration program?
I think at least 4 to 5 years now. Initially, we used to have batches which were for the entire group. So we did that for 3 or 4 batches. Very specific regions. For example, we have a very large presence in the French-speaking entities, as we call them. Interestingly, the demographics and the type of challenges that African nations face are very similar to the challenges that India face, right? Unreliable, connectivity of mobile, but sort of jumping up one level, a lot of digital pervasiveness, a lot of people quickly move on from instead of physical to directly digital, the problem of scale, etc., etc. So all of those challenges were very similar, and they came back with a specific request to do a ecosystem, because Indian providers or Indian startups could easily appreciate those challenges and solve those problems. So we now do a little bit of very focused cohorts, but this program has been going on for at least 4 or 5 years.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sunil. Now I'm going to touch upon a little bit of a sensitive topic, right? As part of the entire growth journey, one of the things that we always have to battle is battle for talent, right? And one of the critical challenges that we see as part of this is attracting, retaining, engaging this talent, right? And now with increasingly as GBS organizations looking at driving digital acceleration and transformation, right? With the technology being front and center, we're directly competing with some of the product majors, right? Now, how are you really mitigating some of these challenges? How are you really trying to position your organizations in order to attract and retain this talent? Lalita, we could start with you, maybe.
I think talent would definitely want to work for organizations which has a purpose and where they can really see the end result of what they do for us. So, of course, there are talent challenges that everybody will face, but I don't see as much problem with attracting talent as much as we need to do in terms of retaining them, and very, very importantly, the leadership quality. I think that's the area where we need to really focus, because as long as you focus on the leadership quality and bring the right kind of organizational cultures and values, attracting and retaining talent should not be a rocket science, and especially organization where what they do, they see the impact of it, unlike probably some of the other organizations, right? I think that's where we make a difference as the GBS organization, because it's an end product that they will be working on.
Got it. Ownership, autonomy, visibility on the larger impact that they're creating. Got it. So, with anything to add to that from a talent strategy?
Yeah. People talk about talent war. I think the talent has already won the war. The war is finished. For us, it's more about it's about how do you build the right capability. The two top reasons why a talent would leave your organization is the quality of your line manager, because that's the experience they have, and secondly, how what Lalita talked about, the purpose of the organization, how you connected to the purpose, how you connected to your values, and how you live by your values. So I think it's very important and is to build the right leadership capability within the organization. Because it's a lot harder to retain people than to kind of actually acquire them. So it's important to build the right leadership capability within the organization. It's not about money. I think it's about creating the right environment of success. Because I think everybody who joins a business wants to have a good career, wants to have a good interaction with the line manager, and want to work for an organization which is purpose-led. So I think if we can create that environment for our colleagues to be successful, and what COVID has taught us, that our colleagues are becoming more and more loyal to companies who have done well in terms of supporting their colleagues and their families through the difficult period. And I think we're seeing a sense of loyalty that is building and becoming brand ambassadors for the organization. I'm seeing that a lot.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a sentiment that at least we've also heard across the ecosystem and conversation that we've had. Line, Sunil, wanted to check on just positioning your brand in India, right? In terms of anything unique that you've done to really change the brand as such, in terms of the perception of just being a bank or a healthcare organization to a say a technology organization.
Yeah, I mean, now pharma industry has for several years been the bad guys. I think COVID has changed it a lot because we all realized that actually a lot of good things were happening, and we've seen how fast vaccination have been developed. But we've spent a lot of time as Novo Nordisk trying to build our brand and trying to explain what our values are about our way of working, our way of speaking, our way of acting. Because I think at the end of the day, the employees are smart people. I mean, they want they want to see that you actually walk the talk, and meaning what you say is actually also what you do. So now also with us being virtual, it's even more important that it's easy to read us even in a virtual setting, and that we are actually active, for instance, on social media, show what we're doing, are very transparent about both the good things we're doing, but also where we are learning and where we are making mistakes. So honesty, transparency, trust are some of the key values that we see more and more becoming important, and why employers decide to work for us. And then of course that builds also that leaders need to really know this and get it under the skin, because it's not enough to just feel like now I'm leader and I've been promoted. You need to really show it, and you need to make sure you align with your colleagues and you collaborate a lot. So collaboration, listening, is suddenly also skills that we need to have as leaders, and it's not easy, and we need to acknowledge that we are learning every day as well.
Thanks, Line. I'm coming to my last segment. I'm cognizant of the time that we have as well. Just in terms of way forward, right? In terms of really aspiring to look at the next generation of GBS. Sumit, what do you think is in store for GBS organization? What next for you?
I think for me is again relooking at your base, making sure that you're building a very inclusive workforce, which is looking. It's not about headcount, it's about skill count. So how are you improving the skills of your colleagues that you have in your business? Because the work that they do today will not be relevant in 3 years or so. So how do you, without making redundancies, how do you reskill them? How do you retrain them and take them on a journey that you're going? And how do you make them commercially savvy? How do you make them data savvy? And then move them into that different space that you're creating for the future. And also I think creating an inclusive culture is really important, because it's about treating people how they would like to be treated, rather than we paint everything with a one single brush. So I think if we can build that and create intelligent business services which is data led and which is insights driven, and in the end, look, it's not about, people talk about process systems, in the end it's all about revenue, margin, and cash. As long as the GBS is connected to delivering those three, nothing really matters anymore. And it's about creating value, 3-4 times the value of your total operating cost. I think if we can create that culture, the future GBS is ready.
All right, almost say front and center, understanding business and contributing towards a business as a vision. Absolutely. Lina, your thoughts in terms of what's next for Novo Nordisk?
Yeah, but I mean, we are going to also provide much more value in the future, much more digitalization and innovation. But it's all going to be an environment where everybody are actually able to do their best. So it's all about diversity and inclusion. It's all about being very clear on our purpose. And when I say purpose, it's very much what are we delivering as GBS to the whole corporation. So being able to explain that in a very short manner, what is it actually we believe we can deliver and where we are at our best, and also being able to say no when we think this is not well suited in our organization, in our GBS, maybe it should be outsourced, maybe sent back to headquarters. I think when we become clear on that, we are really sharp on what we're doing, and then everybody wants to work for us and follow us.
That's well said, Linnea. Sunil, I have a different question for you. My question to you is, for an aspiring GBS leader, what is the one thing that the leader must do?
There are many things, but the one thing that he has to probably do is to have a vision, to have a perspective or a vision of where he wants to take the organization, and then work towards having a clear game plan towards how to go there. Because unless you really have that desire and that ambition, as a leader, as a leadership team, to go there, the rest of the organization will find it very difficult to emulate and follow you. So I think for an aspiring shared service center which really wants to become a truly global GBS, the key, the transformation first has to happen at the leadership team level, where they should dream big, and then able to take that dream and communicate that in a way that the entire organization follows it.
Thanks, Sunil. Lalita, my last question to you is, what should that same leader not do or stay away from as part of the entire journey?
Oh God. Okay. So I think what not to do is essentially, as you know, we've talked about it, not take the right amount of accountability and ownership and waiting for somebody else to drive and set your agenda. I think we should set our own agenda and take the organization forward. And I would also go to the extent of saying, if I can be bold enough, the next set of CXOs for the organization should definitely come with GBO experience. That should be the mandate going forward in probably the next 5 to 10 years.
Panelists, thank you so much for your time. It was really an honor to have you on board, and really such a learning experience for me, I'm sure for the audience as well. Really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for joining in today.